These are two stories where evil going to win at the end. One is Stephen King's short story Gramma. The other one is a movie named The Skeleton Key. Gramma and The Skeleton Key both have pretty good plot twists, and both stories progress in a similar manner. Two protagonists who faced horrors beyond imagination are George Bruckner from Gramma and Caroline Ellis from The Skeleton Key. George was an 11 years old boy and Caroline was a 25 years old woman. Boy in this video looks older than 11. That's because these scenes are from a movie called Mercy, which is based on the short story Gramma. Both stories begin when a woman moves into a house to take care of an elderly disabled person. In Gramma, it was George's mother Ruth. She took George and her other son Buddy to go to live with her mother so she could take care of her bedridden, half-blind mother. In the Skeleton Key, Caroline accepted a new job as a full-time, live-in hospice caretaker to an old paralyzed man. Her job required her to move into this old creepy house in a bayou. With the progression of stories, emotional states and beliefs of protagonists gradually change. In Grandma, George's childish fear of his grandmother turns into an unbearable terror, and the thought that his grandmother was a witch turns into an undoubtable certainty. Caroline did not believe in her local brand of witchcraft named hoodoo, despite living among many believers. Hoodoo is different from voodoo. The catch is you need to believe in hoodoo to get affected by this branch of magic. But things she found in that huge house, especially in the attic, caused some cracks in her skepticism. The backstory of the owners of strange artifacts in the locked room in the attic did not help either. There is a major difference between Grandma and the Skeleton Key. In Grandma, George's fears or beliefs did not affect the outcome. The witchy grandma, or whatever evil entity who was possessing her body, was too powerful to care about a little boy's feelings. But in the Skeleton Key, it was crucial to turn Caroline into a believer of hoodoo. So the witch in that story used a clever trick. She gave a skeleton key which was a master key to open any 30 plus rooms in the house, except one door in the attic. When Caroline found out about that out of bound room, curiosity took the better of her. She picked the lock and snooped around that room. Things and artifacts found in that room sent her into a hoodoo rabbit hole. In the beginning of both stories, the existence of the magic was a mere superstitious thought. Caroline downright said that to her friend. She started to use hoodoo remedies on the old paralyzed Ben as a psychosomatic treatment. But what she experienced in that house had made her a believer in hoodoo even without her realizing it. George feared his grandmother from the moment he saw her for the first time when he was 6 years old. In the beginning of the story, George found himself home alone with the woman he feared all his life. His mother reluctantly left him home for few hours because she had to go to the hospital to see her other son who had broken his leg. Little George started to get flashbacks of incidents where he learned bits and pieces about his grandmother's past. It became clearer and clearer to him why everyone in their family had some irrational fear about this old woman. No one dared to cross her or challenge her authority even after she got bedridden. George realized that his grandmother's temper tantrums, which they used to call as bad spells, were not mere tantrums but actual incantations with some sinister outcomes. Both stories have unexpected plot twists in their climaxes. In Gramma, I thought Stephen King was creating a horror scene using a spooky setting and the wild imagination of a little kid. George was basically scaring himself to death. It peaked when George found that his grandmother had died and now he was home alone with a dead body. I thought that was the end of the story. Little George thought so too. But that was just the beginning of the real horror. All doubts about old woman's witchy past were thrown out the window when grandmother's corpse started to walk and grabbed poor George. When George's mother Ruth came back from the hospital, she found oddly calm George, who informed her the passing of his grandmother. Gramma, or whatever evil entity, is now possessing George's body. I never anticipated the body swapping part of the story. In the skeleton key, it was obvious that the old woman was up to something, and it was no surprise to learn that she was practicing hoodoo. It was a mild surprise to learn that the young lawyer was also into hoodoo too. The storyline seemed pretty clear. There is a creepy old house with a dark history. It still has a room full of hoodoo artifacts, including spellbooks. The old woman dabbles in dark arts and using hoodoo to harm her own husband. Young woman uncovered her plan and turned to the lawyer for help. Plot twist is that the lawyer is actually an accomplice of old woman and a fellow hoodoo practitioner himself. They are going to sacrifice the young woman to prolong their lives. But the young woman is not a fool. She has picked up some tricks for herself. She is going to use hoodoo against the old witch and her accomplice. But the biggest plot twist happens when she tried to play Uno reverse card on the witch by using a protection spell. Caroline wasn't being clever as she thought. She wasn't defending herself against hoodoo. Instead, she was unknowingly preparing herself to be a sacrifice for the witch. The spell which she found and thought as a protection spell was actually a spell to keep her locked in place so the witch could fulfill her ultimate goal, taking Caroline's body as her new host. The big plot twist or the revelation is that no one is as they seem. Old woman is not an evil witch. Paralyzed man is not paralyzed. Young lawyer is not an accomplice. Most importantly, old witch couple Papa Justify and Mama Cecile are not really dead. They had developed a ritual to transfer their consciousness to new host bodies to virtually prevent death by old age. They successfully jumped into their master's two children. Then they jumped into Violet and Ben Devereaux. Now they are shopping for new bodies. Papa Justify has already claimed young lawyer's body. Lawyer's consciousness has transferred to old Ben's body. Movie shows us how they pick, prepare, and ultimately succeed in transferring Mama Cecile's consciousness from Violet Devereaux to Caroline Ellis. I think similarities end here. There are few key differences in how witches operate in two stories. In Skeleton Key, Papa Justify and Mama Cecile had to do many preparations before jumping into new bodies. They had to choose and vet their victims carefully, then come up with the cover story to hide their true intentions and work within that story to prevent any complications. Then the hardest part is they had to convince their victims into believing in hoodoo, then perform the ritual, and at the end disable their victims who were transferred into their old host bodies and discard them without raising suspicion. The witch in the grandma did not have to do any of that. She just grabbed poor George by throat, left her dead body behind, and possessed George's body. And about taking care of loose ends, possessed George just killed off only witness to the body snatching using his far-reaching powers. George's aunt had a bad feeling that something was not right and called to check up on her sister. During the fight for his life, George picked up the phone to get help from anyone from the outside. His aunt immediately realized that her mother was acting up and George was in serious trouble. Unfortunately, she couldn't help George. After the possession, George uttered some short series of strange words to kill off the only witness. His aunt, who was at 2000 miles away, dropped dead from a brain hemorrhage. Everyone in Grandma's family was scared of Grandma even after she was paralyzed because she did not need to use anything but her words to cause harm. In the skeleton key, hoodoo priests do not possess such powers. Even Big Bad Papa Justify and Mama Cecil had to use guns and physical force on Caroline to bring her back when she tried to escape. Ironically, Caroline could have saved herself if she had a gun, because Papa Justify and Mama Cecil's hosts are vulnerable to bodily harms, and I think if a host die, they cannot survive. When Caroline pushed the old witch down the stairs, Papa Justify got really scared for his wife. Grandma did not have such limitations. She actually died before get reanimated and snatched her next host body. That's why I think there was an evil entity inside Grandma's body and it transferred itself from dead grandmother to next available living host, which was George. Movie also depicts this idea by showing us an evil entity which was puppeteering dead grandma's body. It's not enough to just snatch a body. You need to convince the world that nothing is wrong with the host. In order to do that, you need to act and mimic host's personality and behaviors at least for a short while until host's family and friends and neighbors get used to new you. If you could access host's memories, this won't be a problem. But in the skeleton key, it is clear that Papa Justify and Mama Cecil do not have access to their host's memories. Papa Justify was reading basic and fundamental law books so he could pass as the lawyer. And right after Mama Cecil took Caroline's body, she couldn't recognize Caroline's best friend Jill. But she was able to mask that by using her improvisation skills. In Gramma, it is not clear whether the witch inherited George's memories or not. But to me, it seems like that it is not simple as Grandma jumped from her frail old body to young and new George's body. If that is the case, George should have think like Grandma. Instead, at the end of the story, we can see that possessed George is plotting to take revenge from his bully of a big brother buddy, like an evil kid. It's like something evil got transferred from Grandma's body to George's body while retaining his memories. At least that's how I interpret it. The Skeleton Key and Grandma both are good horror stories. On the other hand, Grandma's movie version, Mercy, is not that good. I am going to talk about what's wrong with that movie in a separate video. Subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you wouldn't miss out that. Final request, if you have any recommended body swapping horror stories, mention them in the comments. See you in next video. Have a nice day.